are ready to move on to our last talk of the day. So we've already spent the past few hours talking about how each of the different grant programs are structured and how everything has evolved so far. And you've also even now seen a showcase of some of the incredible projects that the Aave Grants has funded. But to kind of really sum it all up, I want to do this last panel on what does it mean to successfully receive a grant from Aave, and how do you actually go from applying to the finish line? And having this discussion will be Shreyas and Imran, who will help out with the Aave Grants program, and I'll let them jump in directly. So welcome back, Shreyas and Imran, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Karthik. Hey, Shreyas,
hey
how are you?
Hey, Imran, I'm good.
Great. We've been working with each other for quite some time now, and there's just a lot of learnings, both from working with other DAOs and working with all of the new participants that are applying for Aave grants. And there's been many questions that have come up, at least for me, when I'm talking to the recipients. And one question I get very commonly is, what are the right ideas, or what are the right opportunities for Aave and other protocols? And how should I be using my resources to help, let's say, Aave as an example? And so maybe we could start with that, and then we can start to think about the design space, then the process, and then how we think about grants moving forward.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the number one thing is just something that benefits Aave, and it seems simple, but because of the nature of open source contributions and the types of projects that can apply, like there's startups, there's sort of a general like public good type contribution. There could just be a lot, and I think at the very least, this your project should benefit Aave in some way. And what that means is it can benefit Aave users. So like Janata Network built something that saves Aave users from costly liquidations. It could benefit like sort of governance contributors, and so making the governance interface easier, or improving sort of streamlining the governance process in some way. It could help Aave protocol directly, so like increasing TVL, bringing like sort of stablecoin liquidity to Aave. It could help the general like DAO, so like setting up a DAO, a sub DAO that focuses on risk or treasury or something else. And so I would say to start off, like a bunch of projects kind of get ruled out because they don't seem to be benefiting Aave in some way, and like it doesn't mean that like the project should go on to do other things. It's just that the benefit to Aave shouldn't be like a really, really small tangential thing. It should be something that's kind of a focus with the grant. And so I would say I wouldn't overcomplicate hey, what's the best thing that Aave needs, and we of course have RFPs on our site, and there's some things we prioritize like the governance UI and the developers DAO. But I would say that the problem is more like basic than that, where a lot of projects are building something that might be really, really useful and actually a valuable either public good or a valuable startup, but it feels like the Aave benefit is really forced to like non-existent, or it's just like a side note. And so that's probably how I'd answer it.
Thank you. And you've touched on some interesting things, which I'll talk about in a bit. But one point that I wanted to make earlier with our conversation with Robert Leshner, Stanny, was the fact that accessibility has been an interesting play into how grants are being processed. Previously, like Web 2, you could think about these grants are effectively like venture funds or venture investments to seed like new ideas. Now, the rate of seeding new ideas is exponentially growing because of all the grants that's out there. And so accessibility, and then you have kind of the rate of speed of how we're supporting these newer founders or developers into the ecosystem. And so how are you seeing that landscape? And are you talking to people from all over the world? What does your day-to-day look like from that perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's definitely I think there's a lot of diverse like developer and other like contributor activity. more so than I would say, you know, in the traditional like venture type ecosystem. And so, you know, one reason for that is just, you know, like the nature of crypto, like crypto generally is attracted like all sorts of people from sort of the non-traditionally credentialed backgrounds, and that extends to these grants programs as well. The other element of crypto is like the pseudonymous component, like Symphony Finance that got an Aave grant, a fully pseudonymous team, and we you know did some sort of KYC verification, but yeah, that's sort of kept private, and it's a fully pseudonymous team that can apply that. It's quite hard in sort of in the traditional world. And yeah, the grants are from pretty much all over. Like you know, I've spoken to a bunch of teams in across Europe, in you know, there's a Vietnam team, there's a bunch of teams in India, teams in the US, in Canada, like so pretty much from all over. Actually, now thinking of it, it'd be cool to do some, yeah, like a pie chart of these applicants, and the folks we're funding too. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty much from all over. Like I would say, you know, I would like to see yeah, maybe more focused at like maybe more like sort of female applicants, and you know, there's definitely areas maybe we can do a better job just in terms of outreach. Maggie's from SheFi, maybe some collaboration there or something. But yeah, in terms of geographic distribution, I think it's like, you know, pretty much from all over the place. Maybe the only restriction is, you know, you do have to apply for the grant in English, and so there's probably, you know, some areas that are restricted that way. But outside of that, like, you know, we're quite open and accessible to like you know, pretty much all types of contributions, and this includes like, you know, we're focused a lot on developer projects versus like more community oriented ones. Though the bunch of them, they're really interesting. I think as we expand our budget, you know, pending like governance approval and everything, we would like to, you know, focus more on this culture and community bit. But yeah, I think for now the focus has been on these developer projects, but there's of course like many more skill sets you can apply, including like sort of analysis, community, you know, culture, like you know, the stuff you could do in the NFT world that we can fund through Aave grants. So would like to do more of that as we have more money to fund these projects.
And what's also very interesting is I'm starting to see more of this within just like when we're interviewing applicants, is the fact that some of them don't even have Web3 experience, right? And they want to contribute in traditional sense, like the Web2 world. I know we've seen like a mobile app that's being proposed to build for Aave. I've seen dashboards, risk analysis that are being proposed by Web2 founders. And that's very interesting because like I know Kartik and ETH Global team has done a great job of bringing like high quality developers into the Ethereum ecosystem. And now we're starting to see grants playing a part in that, which I thought was a indirect effect. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's really cool because I think it's actually a really good onboarding for people. In fact, I would, you know, just like I would recommend someone who has some like Web2 experience to just like do a hackathon at ETH Global or Gitcoin and like, you know, make your way through. I would include Aave grants as one of them, you know, along with uni and comp grants. Like I think it's a really cool way that you can, if you don't know at all what to do, just like look at the RFPs, and that there's something that you'll be able to fulfill with your skill set. And I actually recommended this to a few friends who wanted to kind of just get their hands dirty in getting into crypto. I actually think that's one of the advantages of a grants program. It seems very simple and straightforward that you have this application, you can actually apply, and you can like do something concrete and you can get funded for it. It's actually it's very useful for like a large swath of people. Like most people actually aren't sort of that comfortable just like getting in front of a DAO and like, you know, just proposing what they want to do. And you have to be a certain type of person, which you know, quite forthcoming and extroverted, and you know, willing to say what, you know, just take initiative, and even when you don't know what's like sort of just push something forward. which I think is a very useful thing too. But I think grants are very useful for like a bunch of people who kind of want a more private, I think, application. If you're rejected privately. It's not this like sort of public facing DAO that's rejecting you. There's also a way to just like like a lot of times the rejection is it's just something they can tweak, or like maybe it's not a fit now because of what we're focusing on or something. But it's the relationship is still there and can continue. And so yeah, I would say it's definitely one of those like really one of those things I would say that a Web2 person should should consider applying for one of these DeFi grants to get in. I would also say like it's once you do one of these, like it just you can then go on to like work for the developers DAO, or like work for Aave company. It's a really cool like almost career path, and it's not gonna, I don't know how long this is gonna last, because we're at the stage where we know every grant that's been funded. It's not it's not sort of that we have a lot of inbound, but it's not that overwhelming, and so each of these projects get a lot of, I think, attention and are noticed, and and so that's really cool too. And I would like to, I think, expand our like sort of reach and ability to do this more, where we can actually be more targeted. I was speaking to the blockchain and Berkeley folks earlier today, and there's probably ways we can coordinate with some of the university groups to to sort of source sort of developer work and talent that way. There's definitely more we can sort of push from our side, but from the inbound perspective, like I definitely think that there's a lot of people who fit that category of like they're not like Solidity devs with a lot of experience. They're just like they're iterating and figuring their way out, and the grants is like a good safe space to do that.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a very interesting point that's happened many times throughout just like the crypto history, which is like high quality founders will, or people that want to become entrepreneurs will find any way to get access to funding so they can seed their idea. And this is for all the developers that are listening today. I mean, I give you like a clear example of the 1inch team and how they built the first iteration of 1inch at an ETH Global Hackathon, or Salme and team at ETH San Francisco and ETH India. And so like a part of like for founder, like people that are aspiring to be founders, seed your idea, right? You have this great opportunity. There's so many grants that are available to you, and there's just a lot you could do with the Aave ecosystem and others. And so like for potential founders, this is like a great opportunity. And maybe Shreyas, maybe highlighting like, have you like, what were some of the success stories been like for those that received grants from us at Aave?
Yeah, and I just want to add, comment on that, and I want to add, in addition to like the money to yeah, basically without diluting yourself, you're getting some capital to basically build something and learn and iterate and experiment. You also have like I think a community that's you're almost like taking along with your project. And so if you're building something alongside Aave, or you focus on one or two protocols and you're really like sort of tailoring or integrating with them, you have their sort of support, I think, which is very useful, especially if you're a project without sort of any visibility. Like it's cool to have that initial backing and integration to like then do other things. And so that's I think a value add that I've seen some projects comment on. In terms of the success stories, like pretty much like a lot of the grants for funding are really useful and important things, and the main thing is just to actually ship it and execute it, and if like 100% of projects do that, like all of them would be really, really great and useful in different ways. And so in terms of the ones that have, Gelato comes to mind, they ship really quickly, and they built this useful solution to prevent users from these costly liquidations. I think they had a lot of background on the Solidity and smart contract side, but I think they used another group's help to build a UI, and so they were just sort of hacky and quick and built something. The Symphony Finance just went public, I think, on launched their beta on Polygon, and so they're really cool too. They're building basically a way to earn yield with limit orders. I think there's Omni Analytics was another one where they kind of took over the sort of analytics function from some of the stuff that Aave company was doing, and we actually wanted an Aave Grants DAO Analytics account that they're helping manage. They put together some really cool analytics on Aave on Polygon on Dune, and they're also, I think, building a separate dashboard in R because Dune is limiting in some ways. And so the way I describe success is honestly completing what the scope grant that these projects have laid out, and a few that there are definitely more that have completed it successfully. But I'd say just doing that is a big enough step because some of these projects are ambitious, but all of them are quite useful to the ecosystem, which is why we're funding it. So there's a wide spectrum of things from analytics to some more ambitious projects, say bringing zero collateral loans to Aave or something like that. That is more ambitious and will take more time and has more steps. But yeah, our approach from Aave Grant side is if the project has a higher grant size, we just split into multiple milestones, but we don't shy away from funding those. It's just that we need to make sure that the execution can actually be done, and there's a clear roadmap to that.
And I guess we're almost at time, but one final question is, how easy or hard is it to apply for Aave and receive a grant?
Yeah, it's very straightforward to apply. It should be 15 minutes to finish the application. And there's no trick questions or something. It's quite straightforward. Just say what you're working on. One thing to keep in mind is, again, clearly outline why you're applying to the Aave grant, the benefit to Aave, the Aave ecosystem, or users, or the community in some way. And then we'll get back to you with if it makes sense to schedule an interview with one of the grant reviewers, and then and then after the interview, the interviewer basically if there's any feedback to the other grant DAO members, we'll ask for feedback. But then besides that, we should get back to you with the decision soon. The only constraint is we like to batch things together, so we'd like to send sort of maybe 10 decisions together, so it might just be a little way to just batch them together. But yeah, besides that, it should be quite straightforward to apply. And yeah, we if for some reason we think the project can be tweaked in some way to make it better suited, or maybe the grant amount is too exorbitant and there's a smaller amount that makes sense, we'll definitely let you know. And it's not, it's even the interview, it's sort of meant to be a conversation to understand just what you're building, it's some evidence that you actually execute on this, and then yeah, why it's useful to the Aave ecosystem, and that's pretty much a summary of things, and we'll have maybe specific questions on the direction you're taking or something.
Cool. Well, Shreyas, thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Kartik for the final.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm sure it was an incredible chat. I